Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the meeting of the Wareham School Committee. Today is Thursday, March 3rd, 2022. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast by WCTV, and also an audio recording is being made by Jamie Wixton. So let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. First on the agenda is public participation. I'm sorry, first let me just back up. There are 4 school committee members present. Unfortunately, Mary is not able to attend tonight. The first item on the agenda is public participation. I don't believe there is anyone in the audience here to address the committee, so we'll move on to good news. Does anyone have any good news they'd like to share?
I'll just congratulate the boys basketball team for participating in the state tournament tomorrow night, first game. And despite what Wareham Matters posts say, we did not make our decision to end masks because of the home basketball game tomorrow night.
No, certainly not.
But we did make them happy.
Yes.
Yes.
That's a plus.
Anyone else? I just want to say that the DECA program is headed to the state competition next week, and over 3/4 of the students at Wareham High School who participated in the district competition moved on to the state competition in Boston. So again, that'll be happening next week, and I have the honor of being there to judge on Friday, so I'll let you know how it goes.
So I don't think we should be forgetting that the wonderful Cindy Sylvia, who led that program for years and did so much, I think those kids must have learned a lot, and Amy Dion deserves a tremendous congratulations for keeping the momentum of that program.
Mm-hmm.
I know our friend Cliff Sylvia would be thrilled to hear what you just said.
Yes, I'm sure he would. Yeah, it's nice to see that the program continues on. All right, the next item, oh, sorry, April.
Sorry, just wanted to also congratulate Indiana Troop for being honored by the New England Dairy Farmers for all of his work with Fuel Up to Play 60. He has been, I think, one of the Massachusetts ambassadors for quite some time, and I know he does a lot of work, and just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that he, got such an honor and gets the credit for that, because he's definitely a go-getter, so.
He is. He's actually a state officer for DECA, so we'll see him next week at DECA. Thanks, April. Next is the report of the student representative, but unfortunately she is not able to be with us tonight either, so we'll look forward to hearing from her at the next meeting. So then we move on to the minutes of the meeting from February 2nd, 2022. Does anyone have any questions? Or?
I would just correct the spelling of Mr. Jim Hardy from the mask. That's all. It's referred to as Harvey a couple times in there.
Okay. Okay, so could you make a motion to, with those corrections?
I move to accept the minutes with those corrections.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400. And then we'll move on to the food service report with Michael Russo.
Good evening.
Hello, thanks for being with us tonight.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. All right, so I will just quickly review you should have 2 slides, I believe. The first one I'll review is our profit and loss statement for the first 6 months of this school year. I would ask you to first look at the total revenue column or row, which is the font is in green. So what you'll see is basically the revenues that we had for each month. It's a total of both the reimbursements that we received plus any monies that we earned through sales of food, etc. And then down on the bottom, you can see our total expenditures. And again, you can see a breakdown of where those expenditures came from. And then the net profit is just below that for each month. So in the month of July, July and August, we were operating our summer food service program or summer feeding and So we made a small profit in July. In August, with the startup costs of this school year, we ended up having a net loss of $6,400. And then you'll see for the months of September through December, we've generated a net profit for each of those months. If you look at the balance below, that is our rolling balance that we have. And you can see that at the end of the year, if you go to the far bottom right, so for the end of December, we are at a balance in our account of $285,000. That includes, obviously, if you look to the left-hand side of the sheet, you'll see that we rolled over $231,000 from last school year. And so we've made $54,000 so far on this sheet, and that brings our total to $285,000. I would say that the main reason that we are generating so much revenue is that we are getting reimbursed at a significantly higher rate for breakfasts and lunch this year as part of one of the acts that was passed. We are being reimbursed approximately $1.10 more per lunch, and I think approximately 40 cents more per breakfast, roughly $1.50 if you add the two together per child if they were fed both at breakfast and lunch per day. So that greatly increases the amount of reimbursement that we're getting at this time. If this were a normal school year where we were being reimbursed at the normal rates, our profit would be much lower, and we would actually have some months where we would be losing money. And that is normal in any given school year, but when we talk about participation, our participation is a little bit below pre-COVID levels, and so for next school year, in order to be breaking even for the school year, we do need to have a higher participation rate than we currently are. And when we get to participation, I'll talk about what we're doing to try to increase our participation this year and setting the stage for next school year when we're back to the normal reimbursement rates. Pending any questions, that's all I have on the profit and loss.
All right, does anyone have any questions? Jeff, I know you do. You want?
Go ahead, April.
So I just have a question. You had mentioned that there were previous years' profits that were able to roll into this year. Is that something that happens every year? So the surplus of revenue that we may have will carry into next year? And does that offset the budget that we have to project for your department for next year? Or is that in addition to the regular budget that we will have for your department for next year?
So it is rolled over from year to year. It's a rolling account, and so any profit or any balance that we have from the previous year rolls to the next school year. And so we do include that. I do include that in when I create the budget. I show what was rolled from the previous year, and we usually generate a small profit on any given year. This is only my third year, but in each of the years we've generated a profit. Now under COVID, we've generated a larger net profit because of all the state aid, the federal aid and state aid that we've received due to all the higher costs and such. But even before COVID, we were generating a small profit. And so we don't rely on that rollover amount, but it's a nice safety buffer because there are months where we have a net loss. And so you want to have a buffer there. And there are definitely unforeseen expenses, equipment replacement, et cetera. We try to plan on phased replacement, but still there are unforeseen expenses, and it's nice to have that buffer that you can rely on. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, and so my other question is, I know that when we were looking forward for the budget, I know we were working through the budget, we've been concentrating on costs of things that have gone up, fuel for transportation and like utility costs for the buildings because of the state of the world at the moment. How are you planning, or how are you managing, or what are you seeing with the rate, the cost of food right now being as high as it is, and that impact on those buffers?
So the cost of food has gone up. We have contracts with various vendors from whom we buy the food, but they are allowed per the contracts if their suppliers, due to supply chain issues or what have you, if their costs go up, those costs are passed down the line. So we have seen increased food costs, but the good news is that is precisely why the federal and state governments have increased our reimbursement rates for this year in order to compensate for that. So it has not impacted our bottom line. We have actually been more than compensated in our monthly reimbursement claims for the costs.
Great, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Jeff?
So don't take the wrong way, but you definitely do not want to use the term profit. It has a connotation. Please use surplus, not
Yes, sir.
profit. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, the IRS will be coming by and taking some percentage of that profit, which isn't profit, okay?
Yes, sir.
This document is sort of a mixture of P&L and balance sheet. Do you do a balance sheet?
No, sir. I use this is basically the state of Massachusetts provides a template.
This is the state template.
Well, it's beyond the state template. I've actually add a few more things on that. So every quarter, I have to provide them a profit and loss statement,
Okay.
and for the previous 3 months. And so this is formatted off of that template, and then I've added a few extra rows of information, have broken down things a little bit further than is required in the state template, and that's what I use.
Good. I've never seen it before, so it must be a relatively new template.
It's as long as I've been here, but this is only my 3rd year, so.
Okay. Do you have any liabilities?
No, sir.
That's great. Okay, talk to me about this. By the way, I assume that's a typo. Fund rollover from school year 1920. Should
I'm
that
sorry,
be
it should be
2021?
Yes, sir. That should be 2021.
No problem. Talk to me about how you accumulated $231,000 worth of cash.
So the previous year, we rolled over, I think it was $79,000. Last school year, we generated a net profit or a net surplus of, I guess, going off the top of my head, approximately $150,000.
Wow.
That, in all honesty, we received a lot of extra money from the federal and state government. We received a lot of grants, and we also received plus-ups from the federal and state government. And because
What did you call that? A plus-up?
I call it a plus-up.
You define plus-up for me?
A plus-up is a additional it's money that you did not expect. It's money that you did not request, and it is something that has been added to your reimbursements unsolicited.
I understand. So I'm used to, especially from our assistant superintendent, understanding that the fact that the most grants, have strings, i.e., you have to spend it on certain things, okay, so that it's not, in fact, adding to a surplus or adding to your cash on hand. So there were no strings attached to this plus-up or the grants or whatever that added $150,000 to your surplus?
The grants were to be spent on specific items, and we spent that, but that's money that we would have used our actual revenue that we're generating on. So we were able to buy equipment, we were able to buy some supplies and such that we would have used other monies for. We were able to use the grant funds for that, and so that it added to that. But I should say most of the money was no strings attached. They weren't grants, they were excess funds that the state awarded to us. And they basically, let's say they had X number of dollars. Let's say they had $3 million, the state of Massachusetts did, for food service accounts throughout the state of Massachusetts. What they did was they looked at how many meals you had served during a set period of time, and then they used that in a formula to figure out how to divide up this excess millions of dollars that they had amongst the various school districts. We were very fortunate in that, and in a way unfortunate too, we had such a high level of need in our district that we were in the top 20 of the amount of meals that were served in 2020. And so because of that, we got a much larger chunk of those funds than we would have otherwise.
Understood. So I assume you have a list of all the capital equipment for which you're responsible. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
a fair statement? What's the average useful life of that equipment?
Over 20 years.
Really?
We have serving line equipment that is over 20 years old.
So if you took all that equipment, I'm just, maybe you can't ballpark it, maybe the next time you come you can tell me this, but if you took all that equipment and depreciated it on a monthly basis, any idea what that number would be?
I have to depreciate, for the state annually. At the end of the year, I have to do an end-of-year balance sheet, and for that, I have to do a depreciation, and I just depreciate over 20 years. I believe, and I don't know if I'm answering your question, but the one piece of data that I vaguely recall, I would have to go back and take a look and get back to you, sir, but I believe that we have approximately $200,000 worth of equipment after depreciation, but realize a lot of that equipment has been depreciated down to zero value because it's over 20 years old, so it's actually worth a lot more, but as far as the state's concerned, that's the value of our equipment.
Well, I'm getting to the issue of how you would replace that equipment when, of course, and you know you do periodically have
Yes,
to
sir.
replace equipment. So when you think about it, you can almost think about this $285,000 as really your fund that you've created by depreciating, which is a non-cash event. And I'm sure you have lots more, as you say, more than $200,000 worth of equipment. So you should really, that's the way I would look at that 285, is this is the fund I can use when my equipment has to be replaced. Now, you spoke about the 110 and the 40 cents, approximately $1.50 for a combination.
Between the two, yes, sir.
Is that I don't know whether that's a plus up or not, but that's going to disappear? Is that what's going to disappear?
Yes, sir. So what the federal government has done is we are being reimbursed. So every month we submit a claim for reimbursement of all the breakfasts and all the lunches that we serve.
So it's based on served, not children?
Correct. It's based on meals served.
Okay.
So, and it's a different amount of money we get reimbursed $2 and change for every breakfast, and we get reimbursed $4 and change for every lunch that we serve. And we have to meticulously keep track of those and provide documentation when requested. And but we submit a claim based on how many meals we've served. So we are being reimbursed at a higher rate on those meals than we would be in a normal year.
And that higher rate ends when?
At the end, on June 30th of this year.
June 30th. So for all of this school year, you've only spent about $1,200 on equipment purchases?
Yes, sir.
That seems-
But we have, let me back up and say, we have some significant things pending that are ordered. So we have,
So they're actually encumbered?
yes,
Okay.
it just hasn't arrived yet.
Understood.
Yes,
So
sir.
this is you're doing this on a cash basis, not on an encumbered or ordered basis, if you will.
Yes, sir.
Okay, how much is that, just approximately?
Well, I'll just give you the top three. We have approximately $25,000 that we're spending over at Wareham High School for replacing a boiler steam generator for our steam equipment in the kitchen.
Sorry, how much was that again?
Approximately 25,000.
Okay.
The piece of equipment itself is just under 20,000, and then the cost of removing and installing the new is going to come to just under 25,000. Then we are purchasing for approximately $5,500. We're going to be purchasing some new carts for moving food around, and then
So you depreciate the carts?
no,
The state
we don't.
doesn't ask you to-
I don't count the. They're
That's
not
not in the state.
correct. They consider, and oh, by the way, they consider a capital equipment purchase anything $5,000 or more. So
With a useful life of at least,
20 years. Well, they don't add the caveat, but they expect us to depreciate that equipment over 20 years.
okay, all right. So was that it for the pending capital equipment?
There is one other thing, if I can remember what
And
it
I
is.
promise, Madam Chair, I will shut up.
Oh, not listed on this is a purchase. We just spent, and I can't remember off the top of my head the last thing, but I would say in the month of January, we spent $4,000 and change on replacing an ice machine at the high school. So that's something that if we were reflecting January on this sheet, you would see in there. If I were to tally them all up, I would say that we have approximately, not seen on this sheet, $40,000 in equipment purchases that will be on sheets for January, February, March.
I'm glad you have 285 in the bank.
Yes, sir. And we do have some other major expenditures coming up.
Better not be at the elementary school,
No, sir. No, no. At the high school primarily.
the high school primarily.
Yes, sir.
They funded the air condition several years ago at the middle school out of the cafeteria because we were air conditioning the cafeteria, so we could fund it through their program, and they had enough money. I think it was about
It was, I think, $55,000, something like that, ma'am.
So we've been able,
Eat in a cool environment.
and it also has helped with this, because it was so humid.
Yeah.
Also, Mike is famous for getting grants. And we've had a number of grants that have come to us. In fact, you have a grant for a van.
Yes, ma'am. As a matter of fact, so we have a $44,000 grant. We've received the money. We ordered the van over a year ago, but due to the worldwide chip shortage, we have not yet received it. And I was actually communicating with the dealership. They have a state contract, and basically they've told me that Ford still has not restarted the production line, so they don't know when we're going to get it. But when it does come in, we have
The
the,
smallest things in the world are what's keeping
Yes.
the big things from coming.
yes.
Yeah. I enjoyed your report. I appreciate your patience, and I appreciate the patience of the rest of the school committee.
Sure.
One
Kevin?
comment. I just want to, first of all, thank you for your clarity and command of the facts.
Sir.
It's very apparent. So can I assume that we would not have this kind of surplus if it weren't for COVID and the federal assistance basically?
At this time,
At this
correct.
time, okay.
At this time, we would be struggling to break even or actually losing money.
Right, okay. And so in terms of other school districts, I'm assuming they're in a similar situation?
Yes, they are all benefiting, so, yes, sir, and if I can expand real quick. This school year, every school district in the nation is funded to provide free breakfast and lunch for all students regardless of income. Our school district, we are in a program called the Community Eligibility Provision, and with that, we are able, because of the high level of poverty that we have in Wareham, we qualify and are able to reimburse every year, to provide free breakfast and lunch every year for all students regardless of income. But that has been expanded for this year to all students nationwide. In addition, all districts nationwide are being reimbursed at this higher rate that we were just talking about, in recognition of the much higher costs for food and other things. So everybody is benefiting right now from the provisions that have been provided.
Well, enjoy the cushion while you have it, I guess. And thank you very much.
And then I'll roll real quick to the participation, which we've kind of talked a little bit about it.
Sure.
And I would just say that
Are
when
you going down or are you going to the next report?
I'm going to the next report, sir. The one with the participation levels.
Oh, for some reason I thought it was, yes, got it, no problem.
So what you see here is a comparison pre-COVID and then current. So what I would like to point out is the month of December for 2018, 2019, and 2021. These numbers, these percentages that you see are the students that were actually in school. So we take attendance numbers and we say, of those students that were in school, what percentage took a breakfast, what percentage took a lunch during that month. And so what we see is, and I'll just highlight some points on here, at DECA Elementary in December of 2018, they were at 74%. In December of 19, they were at 77%. In December of 21, we were at 73%. So we were lower participation rate than historical. If we go to lunch for DECA, it was 58% in 2018, 69% in 2019, and it was 73% in this last December. And then you can see you can do similar comparisons for the other schools. What we experienced was that our participation levels from the beginning of this school year, starting in September and moving forward, were significantly lower. The percentages of participation were significantly lower than pre-COVID. However, month over month over month, we've been steadily improving the participation levels at all of the schools. Breakfast is doing very well. The one exception is at the high school, but there's a reason, and it has to do with the bus schedule and such, and we'll hopefully fix that for next school year. But overall, breakfast participation is where it needs to be or improving, except for that caveat. Lunch is where we are really struggling a bit more. Although our participation is coming up, as you can see on these sheets, it is still below where it was pre-COVID. Basically, on any given day, we are serving throughout the school district about 200 to 250 less lunches than we did before COVID. And we need to get back up to the pre-COVID numbers by next school year in order to be breaking even or generating a small surplus. We believe that there are a couple reasons why our participation levels are lower. One, we think, was, especially at the beginning of the school year, was some parent trepidation, concerns about COVID, about the food possibly, in the school that was prepared in the cafeterias and such. And so we believe that, and the numbers are coming up, so we believe we're overcoming that. Another thing that we're struggling with is the supply chain issues. We have repeatedly wanted to serve certain items, and we plan on serving certain items, but they become back ordered. The vendor shows that they're available, we order them, and then when the delivery comes, they're not there. And so they substitute or attempt to substitute something in that is not exactly what the students want. So we have been working, our cafeteria managers and cafeteria staff have been working on developing good menus with recipes with what's available. And we are seeing success with that. And so our participation rates are coming up. And I've encouraged the cafeteria managers, while we have the money, to spend money on what is out there. If there is a more expensive alternate out there that we can get, that the students will like, that meets USDA nutrition requirements, then go ahead and spend the money. What we want to do is overcome any student or parent concerns about either the quality or the safety or the taste of the food while we have the opportunity this school year, so that at the end of the school year, they go home with a positive regard, positive perception of school lunch. And hopefully, when they come back at the end of August, beginning of September, they won't have forgotten that, and we'll see higher participation levels right from the get-go next school year. So that's what we've been working towards. And pending any questions, that's all I have.
April?
Thank you. I have two questions. One is, do you feel that the abundance of families now that have the ability or have been working from home since COVID is contributing to the fact that now parents may have more time to prepare lunches to send with their kids to school as part of the lower participation in school?
I honestly, I don't have the information to respond to that. I don't know. I do believe that parents are continuing to send lunches with their students to school. As to whether or not that might be because they have more time or not, I honestly don't know. I kind of attributed it again to COVID concerns, at least at the beginning of the school year.
Okay. And my second question is, do you feel, I know that I've noticed, especially for myself, because now I am very on more of a restrictive eating capacity than I had been in the past, that any families that have children with food sensitivities, gluten allergies, obviously nut and allergies have always kind of been something that I know that the schools have paid attention to, but with like other options like sugar-free or gluten-free or things of that nature, do you feel like those families that their child might have a sensitivity, that there aren't as many options that we're able to offer in school to kind of, those families are bringing their food to school instead of having an option that they feel is other than just eating salad every day?
Sure.
Is that something you guys are looking at?
I would say that we do look at it, and we are very attentive to any allergies, any food allergies that any students have, where it's a safety issue. Not only is it an issue with regards to trying to increase participation, it's also a food safety issue. We don't want to accidentally give a student something that they're allergic to and cause an allergic reaction. So we have processes in place to prevent that, but then, as you stated, we have to provide alternatives. So for those students that have gluten allergies, we do have gluten-free rolls, et cetera. And they are able to have, for example, at the high school or at the middle school, if they want to go, or even now we've just instituted it at the elementary school. If they want to go to the deli bar, we can make them a sandwich or something with gluten-free, that meets gluten-free requirements. Wareham, we don't serve we don't serve peanut butter, and we don't serve any type of nuts because we don't want to have to deal with that issue at all. So, because there are a large number of students, and I don't know off the top of my head, but there's a significant number of students that have some type of nut allergy. So during my time here, in order to just simplify things for us, we've been nut-free. So if we do serve a peanut butter sandwich, it's not peanut butter, it's sun butter, it's sunflower seeds, et cetera. So we do try to provide alternates for those students that do have, or we don't try, we do provide alternates for those students that do have allergies. And, but we do try to provide a diverse selection. we have run into some of those same exact supply chain issues where sometimes when we want to provide multiple options, we can't simply because the items are not available. I would still say, though, that that is a small percentage. I would guesstimate maybe 1 to 2% of the student population that I would think would be affected by those issues.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else? Jeff?
So is participation your biggest challenge?
Yes, sir.
And what is the industry standard? In other words, are you in about average for participation? Are you above average, below average? What should we expect?
I have not looked to see what other districts. I've been basing it off of our Wareham historical. My perception, based on conversations with the state representative or DESI representatives, as well as there's an organization called Project Bread that partners with the state and whom we engage with regards to breakfast in the classroom and breakfast after the bell and things like that. My perception is that we are, with regards to breakfast participation, either at average or above average based on feedback that I have gotten from them, but I don't have anything other than conversations with those folks who are seeing it statewide to base that upon. With regards to lunch, I honestly don't know how we compare with other school districts. I think that other school districts that normally don't provide free lunch to their students, to all students, I think they probably this year are seeing a significant increase in participation, as a lot of folks that are used to having to pay for their student getting lunch at school, it's free. So I would think that probably their numbers have dramatically increased for this school year. But ours have actually gone down. So I think that we might be a little bit below average, but I honestly don't have any numbers to quantify that.
Yeah, I think we've accidentally got ourselves in a position to have a reasonable comparison, which is everybody's free. So the next time you're here, I'd love to have for the full year, not only these very nice reports, but I'd love to have some comparison within
Certainly.
the state. I think it would be helpful. And finally, what feedback do you get from kids and your managers about what can be done to increase participation?
Well, the biggest feedback that we've gotten is
And from whom?
students.
Okay.
So we have three cafeteria managers, 3 schools. They've all engaged with the students, whether it be formally through surveys or through basically doing things in the cafeteria when the students are in there and asking them. And the feedback they have received has been not so much that they want more diversity, but they've focused in on food diversity, but they've focused in on specific things that they really like and that they would like to have more often, if not every day. And so the way we've responded is, I'll give you a couple quick examples. One is that our students really like chicken patty sandwiches. So in our deli line, and thankfully, recently they have become available again. There was a long period of time where they were not the chicken patties that we use were not available, breaded chicken patties. They are now available. So what we do is students, if they choose to go through the deli line, we have hot chicken patties that they can have a hot chicken patty sandwich. That's one example where, in response to the feedback we've received, we've been able to put that in place for the moment while we don't have the supply chain issue. And oh, by the way, we have like a month's worth of chicken patties in the freezer. They come to us frozen, and they're good for X number of months. So we have stocked up on them in case we have supply chain issues. And that is one example. Another example is,
You're the student hero.
yes, yes. Another example is specifically over at the middle school, there is, we rotated different types of pizza, and we found that there is a specific brand of pizza that they like. So we have pizza on Fridays at all the schools, but specifically at the middle school, they have asked for this specific brand. So we've been purchasing and providing that specific brand of pizza
So it's
at the
the
school.
brand, not the content of the pizza that's important.
Well, I guess, yes, I guess their style, it's called Big Daddy's Pizza. And I find that amusing, but in any case, we buy it from our vendor, and the crust is 51% whole grain. It meets the USDA requirements and such, but they just like the flavor of it better, and they like the sauce to cheese ratio better, and so
Very discriminating.
Yes, yes. So in response to that, we are now providing that. Also, we've also specifically at the middle school, but all the schools are doing this, but specifically at the middle school, I just had a conversation with the cafeteria manager there, and they served brownies yesterday or the day before yesterday, and they were a big hit. And
My favorite is peanut butter brownies, just for the record.
Okay.
I know, you can't
No,
have.
no peanut butter.
I
Yes.
know.
But in any case, our participation level on that day went up significantly. So, and we of course had that on the menu. We let them know that, that was going to be a dessert item.
Bottom line
so-
is, thank you, you're listening to the
Yes, sir.
students. That's really important. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Imagine if you served the pizza and the brownies on the same day. What would happen that day? Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
By
Well-
the way, today I had fig jalapeno pizza. It was extraordinary.
I don't think that would go down well.
No, not at the middle school, no. Well, thank you very much for very precise reports. We really do appreciate them. I do have just one question, actually, that nobody asked, believe it or not. The free lunch program, as you said, Wareham was already a part of it, and now it's nationwide. And Wareham will continue, right, regardless of the COVID aid that's happening.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Every 4 years, you have to reapply for it. So we reapplied, and we reapplied back in May or June of last year. And in September, we were approved for another 4 years.
Oh, okay.
So if and when this free lunch for all students nationwide, it's set to expire on June 30th. If there is no further funding that comes, when that expires nationwide, Wareham will still, for the next 3 school years after this year,
Okay.
still be able to provide free breakfast and lunch to all of our students. And we just have to reapply every 4 years.
Okay, great. I just think that's an important point for everyone to know, that it's not just this 1 year
Yes, ma'am.
thing, yeah. Yeah, and I guess those are all my questions. But before you go, I know the kids have been back in school for a little while now, but we don't often get to see you. So I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you. I know that you and your food service workers worked so hard through the last couple of years. Very, very hard. So thank you.
Thank you. And now that I've answered the questions, I would like to just piggyback on that with the last thing that I wanted to wrap up with, and that was to recognize our food service workers and our cafeteria managers, our cafeteria staff. It has been very challenging the last 2 years, and new challenges arise periodically. And our staff, not only do they deal with it, but they've been very good at providing potential solutions. So our cafeteria staff, our cafeteria managers, they are always looking for solutions, and they're identifying problems, and they're coming to me and providing options and suggestions on how to resolve them. And they are giving 110%. So I just want to say that they are doing a fantastic job, and it is greatly appreciated,
Good.
not just by the students, but by myself and everybody who deals with them.
No, happy to give them that recognition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before he leaves, I just want to, if you remember, I think it was probably about 7 years ago, maybe 8, our food service was in the negative by about $150,000.
I do remember.
You remember that? And one of the ideas we had was to outsource. And we had discussions with the food service people. They came back with a proposal about how they could change our food service department around and make it at least revenue neutral. If we had a little bit of surplus, we would have been extremely happy back then. But I just think that, and several of the managers are still here with us, just their leadership brings us, and with Mike's leadership, what we see here tonight, just the difference. So thank you. And during COVID, how they worked every day, it was just, we couldn't have done better. So thank you.
I'm thrilled we didn't need to go to the outsourcing route.
Oh, yes. There are a lot of districts in Massachusetts that have gone that route.
Yes, there are. Would you say more than half?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah. And they show up at every mass conference to try and increase that percentage. Well done.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Yes, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the fiscal year '23 budget.
Okay. All right, thank you. So I sent you a draft copy of a budget with some adjustments in there, and I'm still working with the principals and directors as we come in. But at this point, I would tell you that this year, as you know, our LEA budget was $30,843,073. When we met with the town administrator, we were told that we could anticipate a 3% increase, which would be $925,292. When you add that to this year's budget, it brings our FY23 budget to $31,768,674. And that's what you will see reflected in this draft budget. How we got there, I met with principals and directors. We went through and made significant reductions in supplies, materials, some contract service, technology. We received a grant to make a major technology purchase. And then there are staff reductions or positions eliminated through attrition in this budget. So at this point, I would tell you we're anticipating a total of 12 to 13 positions will be reduced going into next year. Again, that will either be through the reduction process or through the attrition of people leaving and the positions not replaced. Furthermore, the district will contribute to the budget approximately $800,000 in circuit breaker. We have $100,000 in the stabilization. We have approximately $300,000 in ESSER 2, and we will be using approximately $211,514 in ESSER 3. So the district will put toward this budget $3,211,514 on top of the $1,181,782 in cuts. And that will bring us to the operating budget of $31 million. The budget that you're looking at reflects the majority of these cuts. And again, as I shared with you, we're still going through the budget, making some adjustments. I've heard that we're going to have several more retirements coming to us this year. And when that happens, we'll look at how do we offset any of the reductions in making that work. Because once again, our goal is to keep staff in front of students. With all of that being said, using this significant ESSER money to offset the budget is extremely scary, to say the least, because we have it for 2 years, basically 2 more years you'll have it next year and the year after. And then we hit a cliff that we need to do something about. So what I am doing, working with principals, directors, assistant superintendent, we're coming up with a plan that I will present to my budget subcommittee with exactly the roadmap of how we'll get to where we need to go. I'll present it to the committee at some point. It will be without names because the existing staff are with us. When we met with the my budget subcommittee and myself met with the town administrator, he gave us a number that we could roughly bank on every year of a 3%. So what I've been doing is working backwards so I can project what we could anticipate the FY24 budget being using that 3% number, and then what the FY25 budget number would be. And that's what we're using to work backwards to come up with what reductions need to take place. In order for us to get the reductions, it's very critical that I work with the administrators to do so because that's directly affecting services in the buildings. And we will also be having conversations with those people at some point to let them know that their position is grant funded, and when the ESSER grant goes away, unfortunately, unless we can find another source of money, that position will go away. That's not to say that every position that is funded by ESSER will disappear, because as a building principal or one of the directors may say, this position is so critical for us, then I need to move it into the LEA and move something else out. So that's what we're really working on now. I have this budget to you to look at. We're not scheduled for a vote. I would prefer not to vote even at the next meeting. I would ask to vote 2 meetings away. And the reason why, I still anticipate there could be some movement. And when we present to you the final budget, that's what I would really like it to be, the final budget number. So if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. It's not as painful as it would be because we have the ESSER money, but it's still painful.
Mhm.
And the rationale for pushing it down the road 2 years as opposed to making these cuts right now, as I know some members of town boards might have suggested to us, would be what's the educational reason for keeping as many staff as we can right now?
Right, because we're still addressing learning loss with
Right,
our
okay.
kids, both learning loss and the emotional loss of coming back and that adjustment. So we have a lot of work to do. Our educators are extremely busy, and we have needs to meet. I even have a little bit of concerns when I look at these reductions that we're making for the upcoming school year, and that's why I'm asking for a little bit of delay, because if we can make some adjustments, if we receive some more retirements, then that only keeps teachers or staff in front of students.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? April?
It's not so much a question, but I appreciate everything you said. I'm pleased to hear that you're taking that extra time to make sure that the grant-funded positions are not critical so that you can move them into the LEA budget, because I'd hate to have that conversation with someone who was critical and then have them leave because they're grant-funded to find a more stable situation. So I think that's an exercise that makes tremendous sense, and I'm glad you're having it. I'm very comfortable with what the superintendent said, and if moving it off, we will be meeting with the Finance Committee next week.
Next week?
On the 9th, is it? Something
I
like
think
that.
so.
Yeah.
We won't be giving them, frankly, that much more detail than the superintendent just provided, for a variety of reasons. And the final thing I would say, I've been on the school committee many years. This is the most cooperative process, especially with the town administrator, that I can ever remember. And that goes back a long time. And his willingness to give us the information so that we could actually plan going forward was also greatly appreciated. So to me, this is a paradigm shift in positive cooperation between the town and the schools, and it's greatly appreciated.
No, I totally agree with you, and I expressed that to him when I saw him at the last Finance Committee meeting, yeah. No, I'm happy to put the vote off, till that date, to give you that much time to, oh, sorry, April, go
That's
ahead.
okay. I just have one question. So I know that obviously ESSER is a grant, and those are grant funded, and we have that over 2 years. Is there any possibility or any person, I know that obviously, I know we don't have a specific grant writer, but do we have any idea or any person that could be looking into alternative grants within that 2 years that could either come up within those 2 years or replace is not the right word, but take over for the ESSER funding for certain positions after those 2 years expire? Is there anyone that has volunteered that we already have on staff, or is that something that we can look at within the next 2 years to maybe continue grant funding to not lose any of those critical staff members that are helping our students?
Yeah, I know in the bookkeepers, we have a bookkeeper that is responsible for grants, and one of the things that she does on a very regular basis is when new grants come out, she sends them out to make notification to people. If it's something that would apply in a certain department or a certain area, then that person will start writing that grant. And we've received several of them. I'll just make sure that we share this, that we really need to keep a watchful eye on any grants coming up.
Okay, thank you.
And then I know Dr. Schwam writes grants continuously if they are applicable. Part of the problem, though, with grants is they're so restrictive that we just need to make sure that they meet our needs, and sometimes they create much more work than what, so that's the little dance that we have to do. But we are watching.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, true.
Is that when I first arrived here 8 years ago, there were a lot of grants being requested, and that would often mean a change of program. So for example, the grant comes out that says this math program is fantastic. That math program is then delivered to everyone in the district. Everybody starts to use that math program like with fidelity, make sure that they understand it, and then that grant goes away, and the next year it's a new grant with a new program. And it just doesn't work. It doesn't benefit anyone when it's under those circumstances. So with the strategic plan that we have and the school action plans that we have, we look to make sure that whatever the grant we're applying for matches where we're going, that it actually encourages and enhances the vision that we've set forth for the district, so that we're not interrupting our forward progress. So it's not that we're saying, no, if it's applicable, we go for it. But if it's going to change our course of action by somebody else thinking that they have a better idea than we do, it's usually not the case. So we just have to be careful, I guess, when we apply.
Thank you.
And would you say it would be true that there'll be a lot of districts in the same situation that have that extra funding now, and then
Oh, yes.
after those 2 years, yeah? On the budget, would it also be safe to say that that bottom line number, is it 31 million, wouldn't necessarily change? It's just how it's made up?
That's true.
Okay,
Unfortunately, that isn't going to change
okay,
at this point.
okay. All right, so we will discuss it again then at the first meeting in April.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions on those documents? Okay. The next item is the mask mandate, which we addressed yesterday at our meeting, so we can skip over that. And the next is the superintendent's newsletter.
I would just like to share with you, because today was the first day with no mask at school, and at the high school and at the middle school, there's approximately 25% of our students and staff still wearing masks. There was a lot of excitement. People were happy to see what people really look like without masks, so that was very good. And everybody seemed to be very respectful to people that continued to wear masks.
That's
and
great to hear.
It is.
So, day one, we're happy, finally came. And so thank you for meeting yesterday and voting. Next, I would ask that you approve the bill and payroll warrants as listed in the superintendent's newsletter.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll move on to the report of the school committee and the superintendent search committee. We'll turn it over to Kevin.
So tonight, we need to finalize the superintendent search committee. Most of the positions are set, so I will read through those right now. And then, as a committee, we need to decide on the community member at large this evening. So for the school committee, it will be myself and Jeff Sweat. For the student will be Gisela Priestley, who we met a meeting ago. Administration will be Principal Scott Palladino. Central office will be Kathleen Bullo, our out-of-district coordinator. The WA chose 3 members from the elementary staff, Deanna Semple, middle school, Caitlin Francisi, high school, Michelle Medina. The AFSCME rep will be Susan Arnold, who is the president of that local. The regular ed parent will be Kim Kavicki. The special ed parent will be Michael Clements. The town official will be town administrator Derek Sullivan. So we had 3, what I would consider quality candidates or volunteers to serve as our community service member. We can only take 1. I would like to make a motion to appoint Jeff Worrell as the community member at large for that search committee.
I second Jeff Worrell. I've worked with him on other committees in town, and he is very dedicated to the improvement and all things in helping the Wareham community. And from what I read from the other letters, he's the only one that doesn't seem to have any either history with the with the district or have any current students. Not that I'm discounting any of the other candidates. I just feel that we have parents and staff members already on the committee, and I think it would be a little bit more objective rather to have someone that has no current or past ties with the district.
Any other discussion?
I would just second what both my colleagues just said. I've had nothing but positive experiences with Jeff, but I also appreciate those 2 other people who are fine people, and I appreciate their interest, but I support the nomination of Jeff Worrell.
Okay, yeah, and I totally agree. And again, I would just like to thank the other 2 who came forward. We appreciate, their interest, and there will be, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, but there will be an opportunity for everyone to be, part of a focus group or, down
I
the
believe
line.
we're going to be discussing that at our first meeting, so I
Okay.
will have more information regarding that one way or another going forward.
So anyone who's interested in the process will have an opportunity at some point, is that, not to be on the search committee, but to be involved in the process at some,
Potentially, I can't promise that yet.
okay, all right, well, let's hope, okay.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain? 400.
So the next step will be for the committee to meet for an orientation meeting on March 10th. That will happen at 7 PM at Wareham High School. There might be a Zoom opportunity there, but I'll talk to the actual members directly regarding that. And then a meeting after that will be on March 16th at 6 PM. That will be considered a executive session, as we will be screening the potential candidates for the position at that time. So it's about to get underway in earnest.
Okay. Is that timeline, I don't have it in front of me, but is that following the timeline that you had set?
That's
up
the
from
original
beginning?
timeline that I had said and that we had published, yes.
Okay.
And I'll get that out to all members.
If we are physically meeting in the high school, where?
The high school library.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Kevin? I do have a question. So I did bring this up before to Kevin. Other districts who have conducted superintendent searches do have a dedicated page on their website where information is shared, members of the committee are named, minutes from the meetings are included. So I didn't know if that's something we wanted to pursue, we wanted to see in our district.
I think that sounds great. I think as transparent as we can be with the public in regards to the search would do well, I think.
Okay. All right. Well, is it something, Kevin, that we can explore?
Yeah, sure. I guess we can work with the website coordinator here to see what could be posted.
Is that something we can explore with it? Okay. 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 Thank you. All right, so you will update us as you go. Okay. Does anyone have any other business that we have not addressed tonight? No? All right, then I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.